Hi, my name's Nick Best. I'm CEO here at Astranti, and I've got a video today telling a bit about my story of my exams and what I think that can mean for you in your exams and what you can learn from my experience, particularly as you go forward and approach your case study exams. So let me take you back. I'll take you back to 1994, which is rather a long time ago. I know. This was when I was getting my results for my final level exams. It would be equivalent to CIMA Strategic. I took the ICAW exams. And at that time, you had to take all four of the final level exams at the same time. And picture me standing in Trafalgar Square at 11 o'clock at night, having just purchased the Saturday morning newspaper, because this was the way we used to find out our results, believe it or not. This is before the days of the internet and everything coming out there. What would happen would be that the results would appear in the Times on the Saturday morning. Well, actually, we'd get our results on the Saturday, but you could get the Saturday morning newspaper on the Friday night. So there I was, central London. I remember it now. Actually, really dark in Trafalgar Square at 11 o'clock. I was there with my girlfriend of the time, that's now my wife. And there I was with this newspaper, flicking through, had I become a qualified accountant or not? And get to the page, and of course there's thousands of names and you're going through looking for yours. And you basically get to see your results. And I'd failed one of those exams. And it was the first of my accountancy exams that I'd failed. And I found out the next day I'd got 45%. You needed 50% in order to pass. And I had to take that one. Actually, I was really lucky. It was quite tough in those days. If I'd have got 44% in that exam, I'd have had to take all four exams again. Yeah, just failing one, I'd have had to take all of the others. Anyway, fortunately, it's not like that anymore. So the exam I'd failed was business strategy. Now, business strategy was very much like today's case study at the CIMA exams, where you would be looking at scenarios and then answering business questions in a written format, no numbers, based on those scenarios. And I have to admit, I was a physicist at university, and it's theoretical physics, not just experimental, but theoretical. We're looking at these very, very complex theories and equations and all this kind of stuff, and maths that was in there as well. I sailed through management accounting and financial accounting, and actually tax wasn't too bad because we had quite a lot of tax to do as well. It was the written subjects where I struggled, because of course I'd done sciences at A level, I'd done science at university, and even at work when I was as an accountant, not doing much. I wasn't doing much report writing, so I just hadn't written essays and things along those lines. So I found that the hardest, because it was all about getting your ideas down in an essay format in order to score the most marks. And I was on my marks, I was only just on the edge as I was going through. Anyway, at that point, I decided, right, I am going to get really, really good. I'm not going to fail this next time round. And I went to open evenings with Kaplan, with BPP, with a company called ATC that aren't around anymore, but they were the three leading providers of the time. Talked to the tutors, decided which tutor really knew business strategy the best. And there was one obvious one. Actually, it was the Kaplan of the time, called I forgot, financial training they were called. That's it. And so I went along there, learned from that fantastic tutor. I also started to analyse where I'd gone wrong in my technique, in my approach, in the way I was planning, the way I was writing my answers out, the way I was structuring everything, and practiced and practiced and practiced. But the key was I was practicing in the right way. Took the exam. I went from 45% up to 69%. In those few months, I'd really learnt what it took to take a business strategy exam. I wind forward 2 years. I joined BPP as a tutor, and I was desperate to teach business strategy. Yeah, I was really good at the other subjects, but I felt like I had really had something to share. And an interesting story is that I remember going into one of my early business strategy classes. Actually, BPP didn't want me to do that initially. It took me a year. I kept on trying to convince them to let me do that because, of course, they saw me as, numerical, that kind of thing. Finally, after a year, I was teaching business strategy, and I started telling you the story that I'm telling them the story I was telling you now. Interestingly, on my feedback forms, I was getting this, it doesn't give us very much confidence to have someone that failed this paper teaching us. Which was interesting because to me, I just learned so many more lessons in what it took for someone that was less good at that particular subject and what it took to pass. In the subjects I was good at, I was just good at them. I could just do numerical stuff. I could learn it. I could get my head around it. I could pass that quite easily. But I really understood what it took to take business strategy. So it was interesting. I was getting this feedback when I was telling the story. So I stopped telling the story. The story I'm telling you now, in fact, this may be only the second or third time I've told this story publicly since then, just because I was very wary after that. But I really, really did learn what it took to pass a business strategy or a case study type exam. It became my passion, and I just loved teaching those subjects. I'll wind forward a few more years. We're now 10 years later. It's now 2008, 2009, and in this time, I'd become a real expert. I was writing in magazines about CIMA the case studies and what it took to pass the case study, the exam technique. I was writing about that. I was going around. I was a freelance tutor at the time, going around the country. Pretty much primarily, I was teaching at Kaplan and BPP and First Intuition and Reed Business School. Pretty much only teaching case study, CIMA case study. It became my thing. I was almost world renowned at the time, actually. For case study because of my writing that was going into magazines, and I actually produced free case study analysis as well at the time. So I was very well known for case study at that point. But at that point, CIMA, of course, then they were looking for someone to write their official CIMA book. The examiner had written the book, but the problem was that they weren't very pleased with what the examiner had done. The examiner knew the exam, but what they didn't have was the student's perspective. And I'd spent 10 years looking at, actually from my experience, of what it really took to help people to pass the exam, through to completely focusing on students who were really struggling. I remember, I told you my story of 45% to 69. I remember one student I had, it was probably about 2003, 2004. He'd failed an exam 4 times, and actually he was getting worse marks every time. He started off with 45, he ended up on 39%, and I worked with him one-to-one. We got him up to actually 69 as well. He improved by 40% using the techniques that actually really originally just mainly the ones that I learnt myself. So it's how do you go from that failure, or what does it really take to pass? Anyway, that's what CIMA wanted, and I ended up co-writing the book with the examiner. The examiner had the kind of examiner's perspective, which is useful, absolutely. I had the kind of what it took to pass, and we co-wrote the official CIMA guide. So there we go. We're going from my transformation really, which was a student in a particular type of subject failing, not really my cup of tea, not the thing that I was good at, figuring out what it took to pass, through to teaching that, through to becoming the kind of official CIMA expert. It wasn't long after that I set up Astranti, and now I'm CEO of a company, and actually I'm teaching my tutors how to help actually you to pass your exams. All the techniques I was teaching them, I teach to them so that they can teach to you to help you to pass as well. So why am I telling you this story? Well, there's an important lesson there for me, and if you've failed at something, if you failed one of your exams along the way, the first thing is do what I did at the time, which is firstly look for tutors that really know what it takes to pass. They really understand that exam, and they can really help you and guide you, and learn from them. Learn from the people that really know what it takes. So that's the first thing. And look around, look at us, but look at the others as well, and talk to the tutors. Look, if you're want to go on a classroom course, then go and talk to, don't just assume you'll turn up and that tutor will be good. It could be the first time they've ever taught case study, for instance, or they could have been teaching it for 10 years. You just don't know. So find out who's going to be teaching, what their experience is, talk to them, understand what they really understand, what they really know. So find a good tutor. But secondly, if you've failed, try and understand what it was that you did wrong. Where were your weaknesses? Did you not do enough work? Did you not get your exam technique down properly? Were you not working quickly enough? Were you not analysing the case? Were you not planning your answers properly? And it's in you understanding where you went wrong that you can move forward in order to pass your next exam. I do see a lot of students who just carry on doing the same thing. They fail and then they do a bit of work. I remember one student actually comes to mind who he would get back in touch with me about a week or two before the exam, almost every sitting. This was for CIMA case study. For almost every sitting, just about to start my work, can you help me out? I became quite good friends with him because he failed, I think it was 10 times in the end before he finally passed. Because his problem was he just started it too late. It would be a week or two before the exam and he'd just be getting into it. He just didn't have the time to actually bring himself up to speed on the case study and actually particularly exam technique. His particular problem was writing quickly enough. He just never had enough in order to just to get enough marks. You've got to write enough in order to get the marks, because every single paragraph is more marks. And he just didn't have that, and he didn't put the time in before every sitting, so he just went through one after another after another. So what is it for you if you failed that is the key thing? Try and analyse that, try and talk to other people. Of course, the beauty now is you can go onto forums online, go onto Facebook and join groups there and ask other people what they thought it took to pass. Look at our guides and our support and compare what you did against our guides for case study and what it takes to pass. So really work that out for yourself. But don't let a failure. I mean, I went from failing a particular type of exam to becoming, the official expert for that, for a professional body in that subject, and on to become a CEO of a company, teaching other people how to do that. You don't need to do that. You just need to go from a failure up to just a passing level. And what I'm going to be doing over, this is a video series, I've got a few more videos for you, and I'm going to be sharing with you some of the lessons, firstly that I learnt back then, that I've really shared over the last 25 years with people since I took my exams. So I'm going to share some of those with you in the next video, and then in the one after that I'm going to share with you perhaps one of the biggest lessons I've learned since then in observing students. And these two elements to me are the key elements of what it takes to pass written based accountancy exams. So I've got a couple of videos showing that for you. And I just want to leave you with a final message, which is actually my exam story became my life story. It's not going to be the case for you. It's be very unlikely unless you desire to be a tutor. But what is your life story going to be? Many of you sort of early in your careers, what is that life story going to be? And as you go forward in your life story, if you fail at something, if you get a bad appraisal at work, or you do some work that doesn't work, or you really are passionate about going into a particular field and you try that and it's a struggle to start with, don't let that hold you back. That failed exam ended up making me where I am today, running the company that I do today. And it's that first failure actually drove me. So if something doesn't go right on your life journey, then just keep at it. Find out where you've gone wrong and learn from the best, and move your life forward. So I hope you'll join me for the remainder of the video series, all about exam technique, particularly focusing on CIMA case study exam technique. And I shall see you hopefully in a few days' time with the next video.